Welcome to Sideline Sisters, where we empower women in sports one conversation at a time. We celebrate the women who make the WNBA legendary while providing our unfiltered thoughts and analysis on the game. Winsider is expanding its network to include more diverse voices that are knowledgeable and passionate about the WNBA. Hear from the women who are redefining WNBA coverage and hoops talk.
I'm Jasmine Harper.
And I'm Ace Pedraza, and you're courtside with the Sideline Sisters. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Sideline Sisters. We are your co-hosts, Candace, Pedraza, and Jasmine Harper. Jazz, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. For all of my anime lovers, I have found a new show. It is called Apothecary Diaries. You can find it on Crunchyroll and Netflix, but like 10 out of 10 shows so far. I think I have like 3 episodes left, but like that, chef kiss. Beautiful. What about you, Ace?
Good. I have not found anything new to watch, but I have been watching a lot of Great British Bake Off or Baking Show, whatever it's called on Netflix. That is like probably the most soothing television show you could possibly have on in the background while you're working. Highly recommend for that purpose. And watching the WNBA, unfortunately, even though it's not great. What's going on over there?
Oh, Knicks fan. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Luckily,
sorrows.
Luckily, today we're not here to talk about that, which is awesome for me and great for everybody else because we get to go over the past week of WNBA action. This was the first week of games for the 2025 season, which is super exciting. So we finally got to see a lot of these new look teams and how they would look on the floor together. Teams with significant rookies like the Dallas Wings or the Washington Mystics. And we got to see how they worked within their team systems and also got a pretty decent look at a few of the WNBA's probable contenders this year, save for probably the New York Liberty, just because they played one game up until tonight, which is Thursday, May 22nd. So we're recording prior to them tipping off against the Chicago Sky this evening. So they've only played one game, but they did look great in that one game against the Aces. But yeah, lots and lots of action, which is what we were looking forward to. Was there anything that really stood out to you, Jazz, in terms of games that you watched, plays, players that you feel like really deserve a shout out from this week of initial action?
Yeah, speaking of the Liberty, I thought that the Aces Liberty game was pretty good. You know, we're not used to seeing them at such an early form sometimes in the season for them to have this type of match off kind of right off the bat. So I think like in their first matchup of the season, I think they both did pretty well. New York kind of likes each other. You know, there's a new form of camaraderie with Natasha Cloud on the team right now. Marine Johannes is also back, so that also adds an element of like fun and dynamicism and things like that. So yeah, I think Aces Liberty was one of the games that I was looking forward to the most this weekend, and they didn't really disappoint me. I do wish my Aces could have banded together a little bit. Including Jewel Lloyd, like she kind of had like an off shooting game for her first game with the Aces, but then she came back, I believe yesterday. And well, have the Aces played like 3 games already?
They've played a few. I know they played the Connecticut Sun most recently. And they also played. No, that was the only 2 games. They only played
2 games. I'm just making sure. You know how they like to talk about the schedule. They do the Aces wrong every time. But yeah, for 2 games in, like they're 1-1. Not going to hit the alarm right now, but I would like to see a little bit more from them. What about you? What's one of the things that stood out to you this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to just echo everything you said about the Aces Liberty game. I totally agree that it was a really interesting matchup. We got to see kind of, unfortunately, the Aces' biggest need sort of like exploited a bit because of the New York Liberty, because their strength, I think, is their bench. And the Aces, unfortunately, are still seemingly trying to figure that part out of their team. Although, shout out to Dana Evans. I feel like she's been a really great pickup for them, as well as Tiffany Mitchell. So that's really nice to see. I was super excited about seeing Atlanta be able to pull off that win over Indiana this week. Nia Coffey had a huge block on Aaliyah Boston, who was having a great game in that contest. So that was a really big clutch time moment for her. And I feel like Atlanta, they really need plays like that. They need to win games like this because as we touched on a lot in preseason and before the season kicked off, they were going to try to go for a very interesting approach on offense because of their new head coach, which is to say shooting a ton of threes. And looking at the WNBA stat site, they are second in three-point attempts so far this season amongst teams, but they're still only shooting 30% from three, which is ninth in the league. So bit of a living and dying by the three situation happening in Atlanta already, but they're only 2 games in, so it might be too soon to tell. But it was really nice to see them be able to pull that out, especially over a really strong Indiana team. So that was really fun. Anything
I
else?
agree.
Anything else
Nia
that stood out to you?
Shout out to her. That was a very big play. And she's been with the Atlanta Dream for a while, but she doesn't usually get her shine. So for her to seal the game like that, I thought that was like pretty cool of her. Shout out to Sanaya Rivers, who had her rookie debut recently with Connecticut. She missed the first game of the season. You know, her mom ended up passing. And so she took some time to be with her family. Condolences to you all. And in her WNBA debut, she scored 11 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block. She did really good. She also got a 3-ball in there, 1 for 2. And I'm just very excited about this rookie class, kind of like we saw with 2024 and some remnants in 2023. Each year the talent is getting better. And I think that like some of the rookies are falling into situations that they just have, no clue about. And that goes with Sanaya, like coming into the WNBA and, upon entering, like you lose your mom. How do you navigate that? And not a lot of people have been in that position as WNBA players to be able to like stay focused, be able to make the final roster, appear in the early games and things like that. I just want to give her some very big kudos, but also just like acknowledge the strength and resiliency that she had, because that like took a lot. And she said on at the end of the game that she did it for her mom. So it was really nice to just see her come out and just have like a really good game as her first one.
Yeah, that was like heavy, and I was super impressed by just her ability to show out despite the circumstances. And I think she had said in a press conference either before or after the game that she at least got to tour, I think, the Connecticut Sun facilities and meet with them prior to her mom passing with her mom. And so she's just happy that she was able to, show her mom like where she had gotten and like the fact that like she had made it to the WNBA, obviously. And I think she was with her at the draft as well. So that was just really nice to see her be able to I'm not going to say bounce back because that's a long process to go through. But, it was great to see her be able to finally, start her career because we all know that she could hoop just on a basketball level. Like she will be so important to Connecticut as well.
Yeah, 100%.
And their development. I guess in that same vein, like I would love to just touch on the fact that the rookies are completely showing out, and it is actually so fun to watch because I think that, people maybe on the outside looking in might only recognize the name Paige Beckers, and like rightfully so. She was the first overall pick. She's one of the most highly anticipated basketball players to finally enter the WNBA in the last couple of years. And she's been great. She's been very solid for Dallas. She's obviously going to have her initial hiccups because you have to get used to the pace of play in the WNBA, the strength, because I think we all probably saw that picture of her getting a hard screen that has been turned into a meme. Sorry to Paige. I didn't make that, so I don't know why I'm apologizing. But
sorry, Paige.
It lives in infamy now, but she's going to get adjusted. And I think she just had a great game with Dallas the other night versus the Lynx, who they've played twice already, which sucks because for a team like Dallas, that's just kind of like definitely try to piece together enough wins by the end of the year to like make a postseason push to have to play Minnesota to open your year, who is probably going to be a contender again. That's rough. So she's definitely holding her own. But I want to shout out Kiki Iraifin, Sonia Citron, Sarah Ashley Barker, like we mentioned already, Sanaya Rivers. Like these are players that have been like exceptional for their teams in terms of just stepping up into the moment. Specifically, of course, Kiki Iraifin and Sonia Citron, I feel like they took full advantage of the fact that there are openings on the Mystics team, and that team maybe doesn't have the highest expectations for this season, but they are still 2-1 on the year. They are, let's see, just briefly looking at the stats, like they are the best 3-point shooting team in the WNBA right now. It's on, less attempts than maybe the Atlanta Dream, 17 a game, but still nearly 40% from three is nothing to sneer at. And I think the way they're getting their shots is in due part largely to Sonia Citron's impact on the floor, as well as Kiki Iraifin, just both of them being so athletic, being able to cut, pass, and just find their spots on the floor and knowing their roles has been so big. And like they just feel like they just came in WNBA ready, which is very wild because that does not happen very often. So shout out to them. And then also, like I said, Sarah Ashley Barker has been fantastic for the Sparks. I look forward to writing an article in the coming days about her impact on LA. She actually just started for them yesterday for the first time. So that was her first WNBA start. So shout out to her for that as well. And she's another player that's just taking advantage of the moment and has been doing all the little things for her team to try to get wins that maybe don't show up on the stat sheet, but you could see if you're watching games and seeing her impact out there. So yeah, the rookie class is just ridiculous this year.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think Paige with the Dallas Wings, like kind of like you said, they played Minnesota Lynx recently. It's tough to go up against them twice within a short amount of time, and then also he is on the mission right now to secure MVP. So it's kind of like if you're in my way, you better get out. And she showed that to the Dallas Wings. But I think that Paige is still playing through all of that, through the double teams, triple, quadruples, 5-on-1, however you want to put it. But she's also been like scoring pretty consistently. Like she has a double-double last night against the Lynx at that when she was getting a lot of attention. She's been putting up double-digit games, and her assist numbers are like really high for a rookie who's only played like 2 games so far. So like super impressed with her. Same with Sonia Citron. I'm going to keep bringing the BG screen. Like ever since that, I feel like she's been on a different level, whatever type of initiation process that was. Thank you, because she's right where she needs to be at. Same with Kiki Iriafin and Sophie Cunningham. And that's what it took to get these rookies to play like this. I mean, Washington is in pretty good hands. I would have really liked to see Georgia Amore like a part of it. And it really sucks that she tore her ACL. Like, I think she would have been like really good in the system just because of how much room the front office is giving the rookies right now and how they're trying to get them a little bit more integrated into the W. Like sometimes rookies pretty much like sit on the bench. They don't really get enough burn, especially if you're on like a contending team. But Washington is kind of the opposite. So they're kind of in a place of like, what do we have to lose right now? But they don't really have to lose anything because they're 2-1. And for them to also have the record that they had last year and come in and are already playing 3 games in and have won 2 of them when people have them ranked, I think, lower than the Valkyries coming into the season, us included. It's really nice to kind of see them like rewrite the script. Nisa Morrow still hasn't had her debut yet, but I think she's coming pretty soon. Connecticut Sun have began to upgrade her to questionable in some of their injury reports. So that's kind of like a really good indicator for what's to come. And I think a lot of the other rookies are going to get their shine eventually, kind of like HVL, Haley Van Lith. She hasn't really seen a lot of minutes in with the Chicago Sky, but that kind of comes with the territory when you're playing behind a Courtney Vandersloot. And maybe the next position that you can slide in is Kia Nurse and Rebecca Allen. So it's going to be a process for her, I think, specifically in terms of these rookies. Even Dominique Malonga, who although she has like the length and some of the size, she is a little bit on the skinnier side. So she kind of just like needs to hit the weight room. I think she's getting adjusted to how physical the W actually is. And we've seen that from players, and especially international players. Like it took Ezzy a while to kind of warm up. Same with Awak Kier, who's not even playing in the W right now. Like that physicality level is a little bit different. And the WNBA season is very intense. Like games are pretty much every other day, if not every day. So there's a lot of growth that comes with the territory. But like you said, like I really like these rookies. They're showing us that this class is not a wash, like some people said when the draft happened. So I'm just excited to see how it all pans out, you know?
Absolutely. And I think that, like you said, once players do start to get like adjusted, especially to the physicality of the league, I feel like we saw that with Caitlin Clark last year, where she was probably not physically acclimated to the physicality of the league, and we saw a lot
Yeah.
of screens like on her that like would have probably been eaten by other players. I remember one specifically from like Brianna Stewart at I think a game I went
Yes.
to. Oh my god, she pancaked her, and but it just looked
Hmm.
like it looks like it is a normal basketball player play.
Yeah.
And same thing happened to Paige, it happened to Sonia Citron, like it happened. So once players will start to get like adjusted to that physicality, I'm sure they'll be great. But that's what makes, I feel like, players like Kiki Arifin and Sonia Citron's ability to kind of be seemingly so well adjusted even more
Hmm.
impressive.
Yeah.
So it's really, really cool to see. The last thing I was going to mention, which I think both of us could touch on, is just the Valkyries. Shout out to them because they finally won their first game. They came at home
Hmm.
for the first time. It
Hmm.
was against the Mystics, and that was on Wednesday night. And it was just kind of like an all around effort, but specifically, I believe Veronica Burton and also Kayla Thornton were like big instrumental pieces to that win. Um, they're an interesting team, and I'm very intrigued to see like how the minutes shake out and just like how the
Hmm.
season goes for them. Because I think as everyone sort of felt like, especially after the draft and also just how training camp went, it doesn't feel like they are trying to win many games, but are more so trying
Hmm.
to establish a culture on that team
Yeah.
more than anything. But I think through the culture, they're going to end up winning a decent amount if they
Hmm.
are able to stay consistent. So, but that was really cool. Like, that's always awesome. You're the inaugural team and you won at home for the first time. Chase Center
Hmm.
sounded super loud after that victory, too, which is dope. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's just really awesome.
Yeah, it took literal blood from Tiff Hayes,
Yeah.
sweat from everybody. I know somebody in the arena cried blood, sweat, and tears for them to get that win. And I'm not upset about it. I really like Julie Van Loo. I was not familiar with her before this past Olympics run. Like I was to a certain degree, but not to where I was like, oh, Julie Van Loo, like I would want her on my team. She's that kind of player.
Yeah.
Um, I really like the way that she plays, especially on defense. She's always committed to whatever she does. I think KT, don't the Valkyries play the Liberty tonight?
No, so it's weird. So the Liberty plays Chicago tonight, and then
Mm.
they play the Liberty two nights or like just two games in a row at Barclays Center, which is
Oh.
interesting. So it's like back to back, but like not like home and away. It's two
Hmm.
away games for the Valkyries, and then New York goes to Golden State sometime in July. I feel like I could be
Okay. I don't know
mistaken.
why. Yeah. I don't know why I thought Kayla Thornton was getting her ring tonight. Like I
Oh my
really thought they
god, I
matchup and
wish.
everything. So like way over my head. Don't even pay attention to me on that. But seeing success for Kayla Thornton, even Monique Billings and Timmy, after they got picked during the expansion draft, it's really nice to see Golden State kind of come together. Definitely.
Totally. And we'll be getting a lot more of them. And they are
Hmm.
just one of the expansion teams coming to the WNBA soon. We have Toronto, obviously, the Tempo coming in next year, as well as Portland, who still don't have a
Hmm.
name.
Listen.
So that should be interesting.
Hmm.
I feel like Portland is a team or a city where you could come up with so many cool team names. So like
I
I'm
know,
either going
right?
to be really disappointed or very happy with whatever
Yeah.
they come up with.
I hope it's
Um
something involving nature. Isn't
yeah,
like Portland, I think Portland Timber is like already taken.
yeah.
Portland Thorn FC is
I
another
think
one.
yeah. So and then the
We just need
Trailblazers are the
something along the lines. Just something along the lines.
in general, like there's plenty. Like they could pull
hmm
something out. um
Call Unrivaled. They
so
had some really cool club
I
names.
know literally if they could steal roses for like just like a
Yes.
bit,
Oh my gosh.
that would be perfect.
Yeah, I know, right?
But there are definitely some, I feel like, teams other than just like general shout outs and individual shout outs from the past week, teams in general that have definitely surprised the both of us
hmm
in terms of either how poorly they've been, not poorly, how slowly they've gotten off to this year. I will say poorly because there's only like 3 games into the season.
yeah.
So it's way too soon to say poorly, but maybe a bit of a slower start than we anticipated, while there are other
hmm
teams that have been seemingly pretty well put together and seem to be hitting all the right notes. Um, for
hmm
me personally, I think that I was way too low on the positionless Phoenix Mercury.
hmm
They have actually been pretty solid. I feel like that has a lot to do with Alyssa Thomas, and
hmm
maybe that's my fault for underestimating a team with Alyssa Thomas on it. That's like never a good idea. But her impact is undeniable, especially when she was playing with Connecticut. It
hmm
was obvious that she was like the MVP of that team. So
hmm
again, I should have known better. um, but right now, Phoenix, they have played 2 games so far this season. They've won both of those games. They are averaging, it looks like 33% from 3 point range, so pretty average.
hmm
46% from the field. They're averaging also scoring 85 points per game, which
hmm
is again kind of just average and in the middle. But I think it's just the fact that they are positionless that's kind of forcing them
hmm
to be so selfless. And that's opened up a lot of opportunities for them. But specifically, the play between I think Alyssa Thomas and Satu Sabli has been kind of the focal point for that
hmm
team, as it should be, because that should be where their offense is coming from. And as a
hmm
result, both of them have really elevated their games with one another on the floor. Um, and I think that the Mercury are just significantly better. And I can't think of the plus minus off the top of my head, but it is
hmm
a wild plus minus difference, especially defensively with Alyssa Thomas on and off the floor for them. So shout out to them because I definitely did not think they were going to be this good to start off the year. But
hmm
it seems like they're getting through these injuries. Obviously, Talia Copper most significantly. Natasha
Yeah.
Mack also went down, but they're getting through these injuries pretty well. So
hmm
I'm pleasantly surprised by that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Um, One thing I will say is I think with the positionless basketball, everybody's not at full health right now, so we don't really get to full scale. Cost still hurts, so whenever she gets put into the lineup, it's going to kind of shift how the Mercury look right now. I will say I'm still going to be down on the positionless basketball, but that's just me. I don't think everybody does it. Like we don't have to do with everybody's position just to like center it around AT. I think
Yeah.
it can be done a little bit more productive than that. But I think one thing that Phoenix did really well of during the off season is grabbing shooters. Some of their international players really came through for them last night on the 3 ball, as well as because I want to get her name right because I said I was going to shout her out today on the
Mm-hmm.
podcast. Monique Akoa Makani. She
Mm.
had a really great game last night. I'm sorry. No, yeah, she had a really great game last night when the Mercury played the Sparks. And she was really hitting 3 pointers for the Mercury that I felt like boosted them to where they needed to be. Um, Overall, though, I will say health will be like the biggest factor for Phoenix. I don't know if anybody remembers seeing last night. AT probably dislocated her wrist really quickly, popped it back in. You got back in the game. that was wild to see, especially like on the close-ups. Satsu is known for like getting hurt, especially when she plays heavy minutes, and we don't really know what Kai's going to look like when she gets back. So I really hope that Phoenix is placing a high priority on health and recovery right now, because if the positionless basketball is going to work, they're going to need all hands on deck, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally agreed. And I think that, I don't know. I do feel like they are probably walking a bit of a tightrope in terms of figuring out how much to rely on either or both of them. And so they're probably obviously going to figure that out a lot more better when Kalia Copper is back in the lineup. But yeah, I think health is going to be their biggest question mark for the entire year. It will be kind of hanging over them just because, like you said, Satu Sabli unfortunately has not been the most reliable player on the floor because she just hasn't been able to stay on the floor. And on top of that, Alyssa Thomas just continues to play through unbelievable injuries. That video was kind of wild. It was, I was going to say, it was sickening. It was sickening. I could not believe what I was watching. But she is just made of something else that we are not. So whatever she has to do, go for it.
Go ahead, sister. Built different.
Like the definition of it. It is just, it's very, very interesting to see what's going to happen with them. But as of now, it seems to be working out. And like you said, the 3-point shooting, especially from their international players, has been so reliable that they just have been able to survive the Kalia Copperless games so far. Right now, their net rating is 15, which is third in the league. Indiana actually has the highest net rating with 22.7. New York is at 16.1. They've only played one game, but I guess that just speaks to
Are they second?
They're second.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
not a bad
Phoenix is third. Yeah. And then Minnesota's behind Phoenix in fourth with 11.9. You don't get to a negative net rating until Atlanta, which is eighth. They're -4 right now. Which, So
come on, competition.
Right. A lot of surprising teams in the top two, because after Minnesota in fourth and Vegas in fifth, which is not shocking, they're going to be a top
5
anything. You have the Washington Mystics in sixth, the Los Angeles Sparks in seventh, and then the Atlanta Dream. And that's when it starts to get negative in net rating. So, yeah,
I wouldn't have thought that.
Me
I would
either.
have thought it might have been flipped with some of the teams that weren't mentioned.
Wow.
Yeah. What is Seattle? Because I was going to lean into them next as one of the teams that kind of surprised me.
So to segue into Seattle, I'll drop some of their stats. So they are a negative 8.9 in net rating. So they're ninth right now in the league in net rating. They have an offensive rating of 87.9, which is 11th in the league. They have a much better defensive rating. They're 96.8 in defensive rating, which is fifth, which we kind of figured would have been the case. They're built for being a really defensively minded team. They are really struggling, especially if we're looking at true shooting, which takes into account just the efficiency of certain shots and whatnot. They are 12th out of 13 teams at 46%.
God, this is killing me. They are like really killing my agenda this season.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I was sharing your agenda.
Now, it's still in the long run, though.
But talk to us a little bit about Seattle, what you've noticed with their play so far this season. They've only played 2 games, but they are 1-1, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately to the agenda. And
unfortunately to the agenda.
So what have you noticed with this team, and what do you feel like is kind of bogging them down a little bit to start the year?
I think that the team is really trying to play more team basketball, which is certainly okay. After losing Jewel Loy, I think that should be the focus, like getting more touches to everybody, because she did take a significant amount. That doesn't mean all those touches go to Skylar and Nneka, just off that. But I think it just opens the court up for everybody. But I do think with more of those touches, especially in the first game, they just really couldn't find their flow. I think offensively, I'm not going to say people can't score because they have some of the best people on their team. Alicia Clark is known for shooting threes. Nneka Ogwumike, champion, post work, everything. Gabby Williams, Ezzy, Skylar Diggins. I mean, your starting lineup alone has the experience and talent that you need in order to have like those offensive weapons. I think it's just going to be time with them. Like their chemistry in the locker room is probably fine, probably superb, honestly. But when it comes to play on the court, especially when your first game is against the Phoenix Mercury, who they don't have to play a position. They can run around the court and get to their spots and get to their shots, and it's fine for them. When you play a different system of basketball and you're trying to, guard that, they're doing that pretty well. But when it comes to answering back on the offensive end, I think they need to lean into that a little bit more. So for example, in their first game versus the Phoenix Mercury, they were 3 for 17. 17% from three, shooting at the perimeter. And then in overall field goal percentage, they were 33%. I think that they were taking a lot of shots, just chucking them up, trying to answer back to the Mercury, but weren't necessarily getting to their spots and trying to get in cohesion with each other. But then you go to the next game against the Dallas Wings. Everybody had a much better night. They shot 9 for 15 in terms of 3-pointers, so 60%. And then they got bumped up to 41% in terms of overall field goal percentage. So I think they begin to find their rhythm a little bit more. And I think it's warranted for I'm Nneka. Skylar, do you want to go off tonight? You want to try to get 40? Go ahead. I'll back you up. Gabby, it might be you next game. I think that's what we're going to see from Seattle. It's not going to be like a clear 20 and 10 for everybody across the board. I think that some nights somebody's going to go off and then it's just going to be an exchange from there. I think that's kind of how they have to look at their construction because they have the right pieces. It's just if we can't get it together team ball wise, let's just try to support whoever has the hot hand and just make sure we're feeding everybody as well as feeding them majority of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that just comes with the territory of kind of having a newer starting lineup anyway, because you have to form that chemistry. There's no Jewel Lloyd, and they are working with a really solid starting lineup. And right now, looking just at their most common 5-player lineup so far in the 2 games that they played, the one that had the most minutes on the floor together was Alicia Clark, Nneka Ogwumike, Skylar Diggins, Gabby Williams, and Ezzy Magbogor. And they had a really, really good defensive rating, 92.9. That's very solid. Offensive rating of 85.2, which is not amazing. And then just going through more of the, I guess, advanced stats of it, the net rating was only negative 7.7. A lot of their lineup combinations are a negative net rating right now. And so I think it's just going to come with finding that balance, like you said. And based on how Skylar Diggins has been playing this season, it seems like she will probably more often than not be that hot hand that they kind of just go to. Because she's off to a ridiculous start, as I think both of us said she would be. And you had her in your prediction for being first team. So
of course,
that agenda is alive.
It's prospering.
It is prospering. Skylar Diggins is off to an amazing start. So I agree. I think that once they just get that chemistry and figure out what they're trying to do on the floor on offense, then everything else will come a lot more easily for them. But yeah.
And also I think I just think that they all have that defensive mindset. So that, I feel like that's what they're worried about first. They're worrying about scoring second, but all of them are selfless at the same time. So if we just keep passing the ball to each other and getting back on defense, but not cashing in on those shots when we're passing the ball to each other, it's not going to level out. So again, like you said, just finding that balance, I think.
Yeah.
We'll see by All-Star where they're at. If they don't have it together by All-Star, I don't know what to tell them. At that point, the agenda is done. I won't be talking about it, but I'll give them until All-Star to see how it pans out. But don't let me down, girls, because I'm really rooting for y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just before we finish up on Seattle, like I feel like a good comparison for them could be the Minnesota Lynx, because I feel like the Lynx and Storm have very similar like dog mentalities when it comes to defense, and like they are great defenders, often without fouling. They know their spots. They are so good at just they could guard 1 through 5 and have a lot of versatility with their lineups. However, with Minnesota, the difference is that they have Nafisa Collier on the floor most of the time. She is their hub on offense, and she is almost unstoppable on the floor in terms of offense. So she's a very reliable source of scoring for them. Whereas with Seattle, like you said, they just got to figure out what they're going to do on any given night in terms of, will they just be relying on Skylar Diggins to be that hub, or are they going to try to lean more into NECA on certain nights, lean more into Gabby on certain nights? So totally agreed. They could get there. It's just a figuring out. it's just a figuring it out process. And I think the last thing was just going to be talking about New York a bit. Obviously, the 2024 champions coming back first game at home, did their ring ceremony, did their banner raising, all of the good stuff, and then were able to top it off with a win against the Aces. I don't know if you wanted to touch on what you saw from New York, which is that they like each other now.
Yeah, I mean, they get along. Kelsey, before she left the Aces, so she might not like us. She said that New York seemed like they didn't like each other, but they've won a championship together. They've retooled during the offseason. We have pictures of Natasha Cloud and Ruby, Natasha Cloud and Jonquil messing with Sabrina Ionescu. I mean, it looks like they're just really in like a honeymoon bliss right now, and I really appreciate that for them. Especially being one of the inaugural teams to come into the W and to finally achieve that championship. Like, that's why you made that shift in 2023 in the league to bring Stewie over and just start a new era of the WNBA. And I love it because that's what rivalries are all about. Like, Aces won it twice. It's hard to stay at the top. Somebody else had to take it from us. And New York has won. So, like, that genuine rivalry / camaraderie, I feel like iron sharpens iron, and I'm happy that New York achieved their first championship. A few things I just saw from them is Leonie Fibich and Maureen Johannes. What an incredible bench you all have. As an Aces fan who has never really had a bench, I am highly jealous of all the people that you have. Especially even Rebecca Gardner. Like, y'all have great players coming off the bench for you all to support your starters. And I think that bench presence is going to really carry you all through the season. So I really hope that, barring health, that you all have like a really lengthening run. I think you guys can stay at the top. Yeah, I think you guys can stay as number one for like the whole season, honestly. I don't really see any other competition right now except for maybe Minnesota. I still have my long-term doubts about that, but we'll see how that pans out.
Yeah, totally. I love to hear it personally. I agree. I love the Liberty team makeup right now. I feel like they did everything that they had to do this off season, which is like not tweak much, but like just tweak where they needed to in terms of like who left and who do we have to replace. And I feel like the biggest one was definitely Courtney Vandersloot leaving for Chicago again, and being able to trade for Natasha Cloud, which opens so many things up for them. Mostly, honestly, on defense, because now Sabrina Ionescu is not
alone,
going to be as exposed in the backcourt as she could be. And that is no knock on her defense. I feel like she's gotten so much better as a defender. She's gotten stronger, which is always like we touched on with the rookies. Like, you just got to get stronger in this league. But I mean, Natasha Cloud is definitely like one of the best guard defenders in the league, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. And so that's going to contribute heavily to Sabrina Ionescu's ability to be more off ball and also be able to create more deflection opportunities or steals or whatnot, and not have to be assigned like the opposing team's best guard to face up against all game. So Yeah, absolutely. The New York Liberty did what they had to do, and they will be playing after we're done recording against Chicago, who is unfortunately struggling to start the year, but they are also definitely figuring things out with their lineups.
Yeah.
And I guess that could definitely lead us into just some other league news and just notes from the past week, since it has been a bit quieter since the season actually started. But the Indiana Fever versus Chicago Sky game actually drew 2.7 million viewers, which is mind boggling. And that is the most viewed WNBA regular season game in 25 years. So that is almost the entire lifespan of the W
Yeah,
since
mind
they turned
you,
29.
Aces Liberty played right before them.
Right, which that is a former WNBA Finals matchup, a potential WNBA Finals preview, and they did not draw as many viewers as this game did. So,
Nope.
growth, that would be my only takeaway. Is just lots of people obviously were drawn to the game, and I'm hoping that there are more games like this outside of this matchup that start to draw this many viewers, because there are just so many games in the league that are worth those eyes as well. Like we just said, the literal game before it would have been definitely fun to watch, because that actually did end up being a good game.
It
So
really
yeah,
was.
yeah, that's awesome to see, and I think it
Mm-hmm.
contends with what the the MNBA averages like on a regular basis, like somewhere around like
Yeah.
3 million or so viewers,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
not mad at it. I just wish that more than 2.2 million of those fans were viewing for the right reasons.
mm,
But even still, like, I think growth looks good on the WNBA. I do think we have some strides to make in terms of things off the court when it comes to the league. And that goes on both sides, from the WNBA to fans to media to social media teams. I think we all just kind of have to be better. But ultimately, like, the 2 million viewership is what it's really all about. So I think, we should keep the focus on basketball sometimes. Like, let's leave everything on the court and just let it be that. Overall, I am very happy about the viewership ratings that the W is getting. It's just sometimes like there are some additional things that come with that. So start tuning into other games, other rivalries, other
please,
matchups. Like, we need millions of viewers every night watching the WBA. It might not be
totally.
realistic right now, but within 25 more years, that's where we need to be at.
100%. And
Mm-hmm.
WNBA League Pass is not, to me, not very expensive, because it's a one-time payment, I believe, of something like $39.95 for an entire year of games. So
Oh,
you're
yeah.
basically
Mm-hmm.
paying like $1 a game, but like not for one
Mm-hmm.
team. You're paying $1 a game for like 12 teams minus whatever your in market team might be, or 13 games if
Mm-hmm.
you're not in
Mm-hmm.
market. So it is quite a bargain and definitely worth investing in. And I totally agree. I wish many of those viewers were for basketball purposes alone and not for any other agendas or reasons. But yes, I am super looking forward to the other games this week. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully people will tune into those. But yeah, the MNBA playoffs are underway right now. So it might be until those are done, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not, those games aren't as fun. Like,
Oh,
don't
yes, they
watch that.
were.
Don't watch
What
that.
the Hallie? What the Hallie Burton? I had to. I'm
I
sorry.
am suffering. The WNBA's New York Liberty have raised capital at a record valuation of $450 million, which is
Mm-hmm.
a very big deal, as explained by much smarter people than me in the athletic and other places. That one thing about me is that I don't do money, I don't do numbers. It is why I became a writer and a journalist, because I can't handle it. But I surmised from this is that basically there is so much investment in not just the Liberty, but in the WNBA at this point in time, that like it seems like we're at a point where the level of expansion that we're seeing with the league might actually get even bigger just because of the amount of money that's being tossed into the league right now. So that should be a very interesting. We know that there's like this ominous list of cities that like never seem to like be connected to like an actual investment group or just like to an actual movement to get a team. But like we know of other cities like Philadelphia and Cleveland and I believe Nashville and places like that that seem to be very interested in getting a team that hasn't happened yet. And all we know right now is that Toronto and Portland are getting one next year, and there's that. But you know, this speaks to the WNBA's ability to make a ton of money. My only comment on that is that I just hope that as the league sees more investors, I hope that they also come with people that are very cognizant of the league, the league's makeup, the league's fan bases, the environments that players are playing in. I know in New York City, obviously you're playing in Brooklyn. The New York Liberty do a lot of community outreach, but I think that I've seen people express that they could do more. So just hope that with this growth comes actual like investment in the form of something beyond just, you know, throwing money at a problem.
Yeah, 100%.
Not to get on my soapbox, but very, very, very cool to see that it's blown up to this degree.
Yeah, I think that shout out to Mark Davis and the Las Vegas Aces for setting a standard that made the rest of the league follow suit. The same can be said about Joe and Clara. Like, they're trying to elevate these WNBA teams to a place where they can be respected, because that's what the players deserve. Like, they're out here busting their asses, performing great night in and night out. They're really drawing in more eyes and viewership into the league, and they deserve the investment and the backing of these owners, of these teams, to really put them in the best position for everybody to win. So I do think with the next round of expansion teams, we'll see a little bit more investment straight out of the gate, kind of like we did with the Golden State Valkyries. Like, the Golden State Warriors organization immediately had a place for them to play, immediately had a locker room for them and things like that. They don't really have to wait around for any facilities and things like some of these other teams do. So seeing that investment return immediately and in the long term, I think is what the W is trying to go for right now. And, in that sense, I can appreciate what Kathy is doing. Like I said earlier, we still have strides to make, but overall, I think the W is growing and their trajectory is going in the perfect direction right now.
Absolutely agree. It should be very fun. And I feel like as the Golden State Valkyries continue to grow in popularity, as they're already seemingly, I mean, as they should be, very popular in Golden State, in that like area, and just seeing the fans reacting to their first win at home, like it's going to be so fun to see that happen twofold, fourfold, like however many other folds that the WNBA decides is possible in the next coming years. So very, very, very like fun and very fulfilling point in the league right now.
100% agree.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Sideline Sisters. We'll be back talking to you about the second week of WNBA action. There are a ton of games over this Memorial Day weekend. All of next week, tonight. Catch them all. Like we said, the League Pass is very, very affordable. So jump on that now. And we will catch you guys later.
Yep. If you have any questions or want us to talk about anything on the podcast, just go ahead and add us on Blue Sky or Twitter. You can add us on the Winsider page as well, and we'll try to get back to you.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys after second week of WNBA action.
Bye, everybody.